You're listening to the Current Plays Podcast, Season 3, Episode 15. It's a Wonderful Kingdom. Now please welcome your hosts, Jordan and Thomas. Et bonjour, nos auditeurs impériaux. This week, we are talking about It's a Wonderful Kingdom by Frédéric Gérard, with art by Anthony Wolfe and published by Le Boîte de Jus. This
Fantastic.
is a... Thank you. This is a 1 to 2 player game. I think we said it works kind of better at 2 players, or you've said. You've tried it solo. I have not tried this one solo, but this is the, second or third time we've played this one together?
Yeah, I think second time we've played together. I've played it a number of times solo, but definitely better at two. Makes more sense at two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a kind of like Seven Wonders Duel. It's like a battle between two cities or two kingdoms. It's a resource management game, city building game. Kinda.
Yeah.
But Thomas, why don't you tell us how it's played?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one is a sort of re-implementation of its predecessor that was It's a Wonderful World. This one was obviously It's a Wonderful Kingdom, and takes the place where It's a Wonderful World is more modern age. This one is more of a sort of medieval civilization sort of age. So yeah, you take the role as two kingdoms, trying to expand out I think you're actually the same kingdom, but you're trying to expand out your duchy to become like the ultimate leader.
Okay.
Because I think, yeah, the current king has died, I believe, and it's like, okay, who's going to be the successor? So whoever has the better duchy.
Gotcha.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that's the story behind it. But essentially, yeah. So this game is it is a resource sort of management. You're collecting resources, and you're building various cards as your buildings for your duchy, as you build out your duchy using those resources. And it's got this unique sort. Oh my God, I hate when I use the word, and I use it all the time. It has a very clever mechanism where the 4 different resources you can get, and theoretically there's 6 resources, but let's talk as if there's 4 for now, and I'll get into that. You basically will get them at specific times. So like the first one, the stone resource, will trigger first. However many buildings you have that generate stone, you'll collect all that stone. Then I think it's the purple, population resource will go next. However many buildings that give you population, you collect that, and so on. It goes into the gold, and then it goes into I call it like magic because it kind of it's blue, but I'm pretty sure it's like exploration. Lame.
That's fair. I call them gray, purple, yellow,
Yeah,
and
exactly,
blue.
right?
So
Yeah. So yeah, then the blue one is the final one. There also is a red one, Crystanthium.
something
Let's
fancy.
just go with Neutronium.
Yeah.
That is a wild resource you can get, and then there's also these soldier resources that help you build your army. But there's no combat in this game. Army is just another resource you might have, or you might have to use those soldier tokens for something else, right?
Right.
But yeah, so it's a very simple game. So it takes place over 4 rounds of the game. And it's essentially each round is made up of 3 phases. So you're going to have a sort of drafting phase, but instead of a draft, it's a I pick, you choose sort of system. So
Or I cut, you
whoever's first,
choose.
yeah, I cut, you choose. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoever is the first player will set down, 2 cards in certain positions on the board. So there's there's two positions on the board. You can place all in one position, or you can split them between the two, or all in the second, however you decide to place two cards down. And then your opponent is going to choose one of the stacks of cards and keep those. And each round, the round will start with two cards from the top of the deck, and you will add your cards back and forth, picking the various piles, right? And when I say piles, sometimes that's a pile of one, sometimes it's a pile of three, sometimes it could be more. Because one of the ways they sort of play around with that mechanic is they have these calamity cards which you're not able to get rid of, and they sort of you set them aside, and at the end of the game each calamity card is worth -4 victory points. So you have these cards that typically you wouldn't take, but the other aspect to placing these cards is you have these two trap tokens that on your turn when you're placing cards you can flip a trap. Oh my goodness, I cannot say trap token over, and you can place one of your cards face down. So your opponent doesn't know what that is. If, say, you use both trap cards at the same time, both your cards become face down, right? So it's a neat way to be like, okay, I'm putting I'm poisoning this pile with the calamity, or I'm putting a card upside down that I want you to think is the calamity, but really it's something that I want, and I don't want you to take this pile yet. So I'll put something juicy in the other pile for you, right?
Hmm.
So it's got though that sort of thought process. So you go through, you draw seven cards, you get the eighth card is the calamity, and you do this sort of cutting and choosing back and forth until you have no more cards in your hand. And then any cards in whatever pile is not chosen, those get discarded. And you move on to the next phase. The next phase is where you decide which of the cards you're going to build into your duchy. Now, each of these cards, like I mentioned a little earlier, are buildings, marketplaces, or temples, or some are just like grain mills and quarries and that kind of stuff. So you'll choose which ones you want to build. They will have a cost that costs a certain amount of those four resources, five or six resources, because they could be the specialty resource, and they could also be the soldiers. And then any ones you decide not to build, you'll get paid a single resource of a specific type for that card, for discarding that card, right? And then once a building is built, it will give you some sort of benefit down the line, whether it's victory points, or extra resources during the resource collection phase, which I'll talk about in a second because that's the next phase. Spoiler. Um, or soldiers or something, right? Sometimes there's a bonus resource you might get. And that's essentially that second phase is where you're just deciding and then placing those. Then the next phase you head into is essentially where you're collecting those resources. So through the stone first and the population, like I had mentioned, you'll collect those. They have to go directly onto those cards you decided that you were going to build. Anything you can't place on those cards will go to your sort of duchy card. It's you're either the red duchy or you're the blue duchy. Both have a name. I don't know what they are, and I'll get into why I don't know any of this, because that's one of my issues with this game. So it's a small issue, but it is. So you'll place all those resources, and once you've gone through the four resources, that's the end of that portion, and you'll continue on to the next round, and you do that four times until the end of the game, and whoever has the most victory points is the winner at the end of the four rounds. So very, very kind of quick run through. Maybe not quick. I mean, we're in 10 minutes, but it's
Yeah.
not a super complex game, and it's pretty quick to pick up as well. Like once you explain it, it's like, oh yeah, okay, I understand. Right.
Yeah, it's a game of making choices.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Which yeah, I like that you put it that way, because like that, the I cut you choose, that whole phase is very much exactly that, because you often you have a hand of those seven cards, and you're looking at them and going, okay, I want this card, I want that card, I don't want you to have this one, I don't want you to have that. And then you have to come up with how am I going to place these in such a way on the board that you don't take the ones that I want, and maybe you don't take the ones you want, because I'm poisoning that pile and I'm doing it in an obvious manner, or maybe I'm not, or making, so there's a lot of decisions you got to make around that going, okay, how am I going to do this? How am I going to choose to play these cards this round? And then you might, even to like when during that round, right? Like I said, you go back
Hmm.
and forth, you have 8 cards, then the next time you go, you're down to 6, then you're down to 4, and then you're down to 2, right? So if you leave 2 good cards in your hand at the end, then you get down to it and you go, ooh, both of these are good, and now I just basically have to say which one do you want to choose, right?
Yep.
Or yeah, somehow that way, or the other pile is really juicy, so do I put both these good cards in the second pile, kind of thing, right? So it's yeah, and then the choice of I find you can sometimes figure out where when that trap gets used and then there's a calamity card put down, you can kind of go, this is probably you probably poisoned this pile because there's a really good card that would work with my strategy here, and you probably don't want me to get that, right? But at some point you have to make that choice.
My
I
pile's
can handle that.
worthwhile. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make more points on this, even with that -4 calamity card, and I'll still come out on top, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. So a lot of choices there, and then you get into the game, and it's or the next phase where you're choosing, and okay, I really want to build this, but is this the time to build it, or maybe I just discard it because it's a good resource. I'm going to get that population that I need to help build something else. Because the really unique thing about this game is because those resources occur in a specific order, the collection of those resources, you can build a building during, say, the stone phase that will help you collect population in the population phase, right? The population collection
Yeah.
phase. So it's like you're trying to build those buildings just before they trigger what resources you're going to start collecting next, right? And in this last game, I found that I was pretty fortunate with how I was able to kind of like play out I was getting the right buildings at the right time and then building them out just prior to, the resource coming up that I was about to collect, right? So it was
Right.
specifically the gold and the exploration one, right? The yellow and blue cubes, which is I guess the easier ones to do because they trigger later in that resource collection phase versus say the population, which is it's not the first one, but it is the second one. So, sometimes you need a
Yeah.
population to build a building that gets you population, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, next round I'll benefit from this building,
Yeah,
right?
I ran into that. And a couple of times I had to use the chrysanthemum or whatever,
Yeah, yeah.
the which is a wild resource, right? And it was like, yeah, it was like I need a population to finish this building, but it makes me more population, which I need. So, like, how do I get this built before the population phase triggers? And then yeah, like I had to, like I said, use that wild resource a couple of times, but then I needed that for other buildings, and yeah, it was good. It was a good one. I focused a lot on those purple buildings. That's another thing I like is how there's three colors. Well, there's more than three colors. There's gray, but those are like production buildings. So those
Yes.
they they usually will make you stone and then often another resource as well, and they're just resource generators, whereas then the other three colors, purple, blue, and yellow, those ones might produce stuff or they might just get you points or a little bit of both, but play off each other quite well, right? So you'll have like some yellow cards that get you points for every purple card you have, and then you'll have purple cards that get you points for every blue card that you have, you know. And there seems to be a good balance between those three.
Yeah, and I think as far as balance is concerned too, like if you look at the cards, I'm pretty sure, especially amongst the yellow and the blue, I think there's like exact numbers of each type of card with like, okay, there's a 6 point scoring card in this color and a 6 point in that, and I think there's slight
Hmm.
variations between each of the colors. Now, specifically, the gray ones are very interesting because you're right, they're absolutely the resource generation one. They don't even give you points. There's no points for any of the gray ones. So like at the end of the game, you're like, look at all this wasted space here because it got me nothing. It did. It helped you build out everything else.
Right.
And I think this is where my issue with the solo mode comes in. And I mentioned this before when we talked about this on the podcast the last season one or season two. But basically with the solo mode, and I really dislike solo modes that you have to change the behavior of how you would play because you're playing solo.
Right.
Because it changes the game enough that it doesn't make sense to play it like you would normally play a game. So specifically, those buildings in solo mode are traps, complete garbage. You cannot go that route. You can't build any of the gray ones, or else you put yourself so far behind that you can't score the appropriate points to solo set up by tiers of points, right?
How do you even build the other buildings then?
Yeah, it really comes down to just how you're discarding cards because the draft portion changes a bit with solo as well. And that's the biggest thing is it's less of a I cut you choose and more it's just you generate two piles in a specific way. So
Hmm.
you end up with more cards, so you can discard more cards for resources.
Oh, okay, okay.
But those gray ones typically become more of a uh, just a trap where you really have to focus on, say, you know, if your specific duchy starts with a two-time multiplier for gold cards, you want to max out your multipliers for the gold cards. Basically, get every single gold card that has a multiplier and build it out that way, and ignore every other type of card.
Hmm.
And it breaks the game. It makes it
Yeah.
it makes it silly because then you're really beholden to what is coming up in that drafting portion. If nothing comes up good, okay, you don't get any of the orange, the gold ones, then you won't pass the scoring scenario kind of thing, right?
Right, right,
Versus
right.
when we first played this, you crushed me because I came in playing from solo. So I tried to do that, and then you just like flew ahead, doing how you typically would play this game, right? You build your resource generation early, and then you start moving into the production buildings and then or cards and then into like your high point scoring cards. That's what you did. Because that obviously is how you would play this game in in a typical way, right? And you
Yeah.
crushed me that first time we played. And then I was like, well, this game's on the sell pile, right? But I basically was like, you know what, I gotta give this one more chance. And then
Right.
I played it the same way you played, right? Where it was like, okay, let's focus
Yeah.
on some of these. But even then, because this is because you have cards and you're drawing randomly, like that first round for us when we played it, and we mentioned this when we were playing, like I was able to pick up like five, six like gray buildings, and I'm not
Hmm.
even sure how. I don't think you got many. You were just like you
No.
got yeah,
I
yeah,
got two, I can't remember what they were called, markets maybe, but it was like
sure, yeah,
stone and gold it would produce, right? And it was like
yep.
three stone and something to make it. Um, so, and I remember distinctly I had a quarry in my hand when I got my hand,
Hmm.
which makes 2 stone. And I'm like, well, I definitely want this. And I put it in a pile that I thought it had like more gray cards in it. And I'm like, he's not going to take this. And then you definitely took that pile. And I'm like, and like, well, that didn't work. And then
Yeah,
after like the draft, yeah, I had no gray cards. And then the other thing is I had this hand full of amazing point scoring cards. So I'm like, well, I don't want to let go of that. I don't want to let go of that. I'm like, th- none of these I'm going to build the first round, but I
yeah,
want all of these for scoring at the end of the game. So I think I only let go of one or maybe two cards. And that really, like that first round really hurt because I only managed to, I think it managed to make one market or whatever it's called, but only during the building phase. I didn't even build it, before we went into those resource phases. So like I
yeah,
wasn't getting
yeah.
any extra production. Your Duchy card gives you like a base level of production, which is I think four, right? 3 stone, and then
Three stone, and then yeah.
your
Yours,
personal
I think gave you yeah, like the blue, and mine gave
blue.
me a yellow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, round one was a rough start for me. It picked up after that. I started going for the purple buildings, and the
Yeah,
purple,
you did well on those, really
well, like
well.
every single one I had was like it. The more purple cards I had, the more it did. And I had a couple that was like make a exploration, a blue, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for every purple building you have, make a stone for every purple building you have. And then I had, lots of cards that were, points for every purple building you have. So I kind of went heavy on those. But then my duchies multiplier was for blue cards. So it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was really interesting to see. Like I don't think I had a single purple building. And I suffered a bit for any card that I had in my hand when I was, especially when we were drafting or picking cards, it was like if it had two population as a build cost, two purple cubes, I just was like, nah, I ain't gonna build it because it would have taken too long. It would have taken 2 rounds to build, and that's
Yeah.
half the game, right? So yeah, I was just I was getting rid of a lot of those, and then like or cashing them out and cashing out purple ones to get for the singular purple cube that it might get me so that I could put a purple cube on one of the buildings that I decided to keep. But yeah, that was like my biggest hamper during this game was just trying to figure out how am I going to get the population I need without any of those purple buildings, right?
Hmm.
And I happened to build, I think one of my gray buildings gave me one purple, and I got that out pretty early. One of the ones from that first round, I was able to build that, and then that was enough to get me through
Hmm.
the entire game with just the one. But specifically having to pick piles that didn't have very many purple cards or giving up purple cards because the last round. So we played with a module that essentially what you had to do was you had to complete a main quest, and then there was three other kind of sub quests you can complete that would you essentially sub quests ended up being trade in some resources to get some other resources, right?
Right.
Whereas the main quest was I think it was we needed to have 12 soldiers, trade in 12 soldiers, and have two blue buildings built. And if you complete that, you can actually win the game, right? So, like, if
It,
I killed you on points, but I didn't complete, that objective, I would have lost the game,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's basically the objective needs to be completed. Then you will actually look at your points and whoever has the most points, right? But
And it
yeah,
was a
that so
struggle to get those 12 soldiers. Like,
it was really hard. Like I got a few soldiers early on, and like even in like round one, and I was like, "Phew, this is gonna be easy, right?" I had like 3 soldiers. And then round two and round three, like round two, it was like, I didn't get any. And, and then I was like, okay, maybe I don't want to spend the soldiers I had. Round three, I did well, where I brought it up to like I had 10 soldiers and I knew all I had to do was get two more in round four. But then round four, the cards came out and I was like, Oh no. There's not there was it was I had three cards in my hand. Two of them were purple cards that gave you four soldiers each. And I was like, okay, gross. I can't build these. And those are a lot of soldiers that, if you take, it's gonna help you get soldiers,
Yeah.
right? Then I had one blue card that gave me one soldier, and I was like, I need to get this card. So somehow I need to like make those piles. So you choose the other one, and it ended up working out. I
Yeah.
ended up getting that one that I needed, and you ended up taking the two purples that I had, or at least I had one purple and one other one that did soldiers as well. But
Yeah,
that
so that
last round, yeah,
the Grand Army cards, I think it was called,
yeah,
gives
yeah.
you, I think it cost five population to make this. It was four
Mhm,
or
mhm.
five, but I think it was five, to build that card. But then it gave you four soldiers, and I had two of them because they were purple cards, so they
Yeah,
worked well for me. But it was hard. It was hard to do. I wasn't making that much purple production until round three or four.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
like I didn't complete those cards until round four. So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it was, yeah. I
Yeah.
think I went into round four with like two soldiers, and I'm like, I have to make 10 soldiers this round.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I did
It
it.
was it was pretty neat. Like we both came down right. So yeah, that round four before we completed that objective, right? And it was like, whew, almost didn't do that.
Yep,
Yeah, and
yep.
it just would have been, I guess this is game over. But yeah, yeah, we both happened to do that. And then yeah, it came down. It was a pretty close game, I thought.
Not
Considering
really.
considering I took all the the production buildings in that first round,
Yeah,
and then you basically have just a round of okay, well I've committed to a bunch of buildings, so round two I got to somehow produce all the resources to make these buildings, not a waste of collecting, right? Because that's the other thing. Once you've committed to a building, they're essentially stuck there. You can't then go, okay, I'm going to
yeah.
get rid of this building and take the resource for it. No, no, no. You said you were going to complete it. You got to complete it. There's no negative effects if you don't complete it, other than you essentially wasted having a resource at an earlier turn kind of thing, right?
And you
So
might have put resources on that building already that are
exactly.
just
Yeah,
wasted,
yeah,
right? Because the
yeah,
other thing about this game, I don't think we mentioned, but when you gain a resource, you have to put it somewhere.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
like, there's no banking resources for later. What you can do is bank, like, if you can't put your resources anywhere, they go on your duchy card. And once you have five resources there, it'll make you one of those wild ones, the chrysanthemums or
yeah. Neutroniums, Newtonium.
Newtonians.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but 5 to 1, that like is a pretty harsh, ratio.
yeah.
But those red cubes are very valuable. So and if you do gain a red cube somehow, that you can set aside,
That
right?
one you can bang. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah. And that was actually interesting about this game. So I went in, I had those production buildings. I was good, but you went like wide with a bunch of those buildings. But there's a few times, especially early on, where like I get a gold and I'd be like, oh darn, I actually can't place this. So I'd put it on my card and ended up having like four resources before you like even had an extra resource to put on that card, right?
Yeah.
Because you had so many areas to put those resources, and yeah, okay, that wild resource is great, but paying 5 to 1, like you said, is it's quite expensive, and it's like I get a building the next turn, then I was like, yeah, I'm looking at four of those resources that would have built this building had I
Yeah,
had this
yeah.
out, kind of thing, right? So, oh yeah, I got the fifth and got this singular cube that will not complete this building, right? So. Yeah, that was an interesting thing to see as well, right? So another thing where you have to make your choices of like, okay, I want to put this card down because it'll just give me a space to put those purples that I'm producing right now, versus me throwing them onto, the duchy card and converting them into a wild resource.
I had that sort of with the blue.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Once you're building
at
too many, yeah, yeah,
at one point because I had no blue production. Um, I don't know. I think like you, because I had the blue multiplier because I was the blue duchy.
Yeah.
Even though the red duchy has a yellow multiplier, but anyway, um, I think you tried to keep the blue buildings away from me at the beginning, and
Yeah.
then so I just ended up I couldn't produce any blue. But then I did get this one card. Like I said, there was blue, I think two blue for every purple building that I had.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
and then that just started generating me a bunch. And for one round, they kind of went to waste. But then the next round, I grabbed some blue buildings that were worth some high points, right? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and then it was great. Then it was, I filled those up easily. So, but
Yeah. It
like
feels.
it was, but by the fourth round, I was producing a bunch. But
Ooh. Yeah.
that
More
was
than I
the
was. Yeah.
fourth round. Like that's the end of the game, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It feels really good when you got a good like production engine and you're like, okay, I get 10 of these cubes. And look at this. I fill up all the yellow spots on these two cards that
Right.
were empty this round, but I just, almost completed those cards and then, some other resources will fill it. But yeah, yeah, that feels really good when you can do that.
Yeah.
Versus like, oh, I got, five of these resources and I have nowhere to place them. So I place them on the card here and I get a wild resource
Yeah.
and I have nowhere to place it, right? Yeah. So
The other
I
mechan Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. No, no, go ahead.
The other mechanic I find interesting is that you get soldiers if you produce more of a resource than your opponent, right? I think that's
Hmm.
you've not only incentive, bleh, you not only have an incentive to generate lots of resources so you can build the buildings, but also you need those soldiers. So it adds just a little bit of player interaction. You're trying to you can't you're probably not going to, let's say, overproduce or produce more resources than your opponent on every resource. So you can kind of look and see, okay, well, you're making five of these. I need to make sure that I make six of those. Even
Yeah,
though
yeah.
for yellow, maybe I'm definitely not going to catch up to you. So there's that bit of push and pull there.
Yeah, I like that. It feels good and just the and it's interesting too because they do it in a like two waves. So like you move that soldier first to like the ready area and then if you win another majority, then it comes to your board. And
Right.
it's an interesting way of doing things because it feels like they've added this sort of slow timer to that you can't just stock up on it. So it really made that when we needed to get to 12 soldiers, really made that like, okay, I hopefully I'm banking on getting like a few soldiers in the mix here just on these. And if someone like if you had a swept it that last round, I wouldn't have got my last soldier kind of thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it adds that sort of tension, which is kind of cool. I think my biggest issue with this one. And I put this like I'm on the fence. I'm like if I rated this game, I'd give it like a 6 or 7 out of 10 because it's not quite the level of mastery of some of the other games we've talked about, right? A lot of this top row are games that I absolutely love. And for those listening on the podcast, I'm kind of pointing to the top of my shelf to a lot of the games that we've already discussed in the previous, episodes of the podcast, previous seasons. But yeah, so this one, I don't know, it just doesn't have the. It sits on the shelf, and I look at it and I ignore it a lot of the times. When we get it out, it's fun to play. But I think one of my issues is it feels sometimes too much of when you get those cars, it's just I'm looking at okay, here's the cost, here's the benefit I get at the bottom, here's the discard thing I get, and I ignore everything else, and it feels less of I'm building out my duchy with this cool market and this cool temple and this cool dragon's egg and whatever, and more of uh 3 gold gold cubes and a gray cube and a purple cube and okay, discard this and I got a blue cube and then it's just that. So I'm just looking at cubes on cards when there is beautiful artwork on these cards, but I couldn't tell you like any of the cards, right? I can't even tell
Orienting.
you the name of the duchies because I ignore every single piece of artwork on this game for whatever reason. Maybe that's just an issue with myself, but I've played it X amount of times, even solo, and could not tell you a single picture on any of these cards, which is a shame because I often I quite like some of the artwork in some of these board games and pay attention to it quite often in different games. But this one, I don't know, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
the game distracts me enough away from that artwork that you could say the cards could literally just be cubes on them, and it would have it would probably it obviously would play the same, but it would I'd pay just as much attention to the artwork on it if it was just cubes. And maybe that's not true. Maybe if it was really ugly, I wouldn't have bought it. But yeah,
Probably.
I feel kind of bad that it's the art is sort of wasted on me in this sense. Um,
Yeah, I wonder if it's because like you do really have to plan ahead, and it's quite the math problem realistically, right?
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and you only have so much cognitive load that yeah, but anyway.
Yeah, and then compared to we haven't played It's a Wonderful World. I do see, if you Google, the differences between the two games, there is some differences, of course. That one seems to get slightly higher recommendations, I
Okay.
suppose, than this one does. It could be just preference of, theme. Who knows, right? Um, but yeah, I don't know. For me on this one, I enjoy when we play. And there is a few modules that you can like sub in and out for sort of victory conditions. So in the case of the quest, that was the sort of victory condition. But as far as like there's an advisory module you can also do, and there's a villain module you can also put in sub of those quests. We've never tried those. I'd like to try those at least once, but this one
Yeah.
might find its way onto the sale pile again at some point. Yeah, it just really depends. For whatever reason, it's just not as glamorous as some of the other games
Yeah.
we play, right?
Good,
So
but not like fantastic.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that's a good way of
And
putting
it's
it.
there's a lot of
It's
competition for
there's so much competition out there that like
like every
it's
week I'm
not
like I want to play all the games, but you can only choose one, right?
yeah. And I find like what I'm trying to do right now is try some of these games that I'm kind of iffy on to really determine is this going to stay in my collection because our collections are so big at this point
Yeah.
that yeah, when it comes down to it, if we're taking the time to play something like this, then we're not taking the time to play something like Concordia or Zolkin or Golem or Blood Rage or something like that, right?
Yeah.
And put Blood Rage, put this in a boxing ring. It's there's a clear winner there, right?
Yeah.
So I hate to poo-poo on it, but that's kind of my final thoughts on that for sure.
Well, the last time we played this was season 2, episode 13, our last episode of season 2. So
Oh wow.
give
Wow.
that a listen and then, give after you give this a listen, see how it changed for us.
Yeah.
But
There you go. Cause the
yeah.
hiatus.
Yeah. And we'll end it there. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. And we'll see you next
See ya.
week. And that wraps up another episode of the Current Plays podcast. Check us out next week on YouTube or your favorite podcast provider. But until then, good gaming and good night.
Good night, folks.